Hey guys, welcome to today's video where we're going to be discussing my 2020 NFL Preseason Power Rankings. Before we get started, please like and subscribe. It really helps my channel grow. And on a quick side note, if you don't already know, I've been writing some articles for the updog.com, which is basically a sports article website where anyone under the age of 22 can post articles on any sports topic that they're interested in. If any of you are, interested in reading some of the articles on the website, feel free to go check those out. I'll leave a link to them in the description down below. There are some really interesting articles up, and we're coming out with new content daily. Secondly, if any of you are under the age of 22 and are interested in doing some sports writing, then you can sign up on the updog.com immediately. By the way, it's free and you can write as much or as little as you want. The only requirements are that you're under 22 and are interested in sports writing. If this is something that even partially interests you, why not give it a shot? It's a good thing to put on a resume, and once again, you can write as much or as little as you want. I'll leave the link in the description down below for those that are interested. Now let's dive right into the video, and I hope you enjoy. So number 32, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Although I do like the Jags offense, I do like Gardner Minshew, I like some of the receivers they have like DJ Chark and D.D. Westbrook, but overall I hate this defense. I don't think it's good. They lost Calais Campbell this offseason. They did bring in Joe Sherbert as a linebacker this offseason through free agency, and I did like them picking up K'Lavon Chaisson and C.J. Henderson in the draft, but overall, the talent level of this defense is nothing compared to a few years ago when they were in the AFC Championship game. They've definitely gone downhill, and I think that defense is going to be a thorn in the side of this team. As I said, I like the offense. I think Minshew's good, but overall, I think this is clearly the worst team in the league. Now, though, let's move on to number 31, where I think it's going to be the Washington football team. So with Washington, I think their offense is going to be the problem. I love this defense. Actually, I think this front four is one of the best in the league. If you look at the talent they have there, Montez Sweat, Daron Payne, Jonathan Allen, Chase Young, Ryan Kerrigan, and they're only going to get better. A lot of those guys are younger, and they're only going to develop and improve. Although there are some questions in the secondary, they did bring in Kendall Fuller. They do have Landon Collins. But as I said, on offense, I think they're going to struggle. I mean, I didn't like how Dwayne Haskins played last year. And although Terry McLaurin proved that he could be a wide receiver one last season, the rest of that wide receiver core is kind of all over the place. They do have Brandon Scherff as a right guard. He's a talented football player, but they did lose Eric Flowers this offseason, who surprisingly played well at times for Washington. Overall, I think they're going to be number 31, but I think they've got a lot of talent and they've got a lot of depth. And I think they're a younger team who can improve this season. Now let's move on to number 30, where I have the New York Jets. With the New York Jets, I think it's going to be an interesting season for them. So on offense, they've got Le'Veon Bell and Sam Darnold, but I don't like Adam Gase as a play caller. As a Dolphins fan, I know that Gase isn't a good locker room guy, and I think this locker room might end up rebelling against him. Also, originally, I had them a little bit higher up in these power rankings, but they ended up trading away Jamal Adams, which is a big loss for this defense. Overall, though, this defense last season wasn't bad at stopping the run, but they're going to need to get better at stopping the pass moving forward. Although they did lose Jamal Adams this offseason, I think their secondary isn't terrible. Pierre Desir is a solid corner. Brad McDougald, who they got in the Jamal Adams trade, isn't a bad safety, and Marcus May, as well as Brian Poole, round out a pretty solid secondary. It's not an elite secondary. It's an average secondary, but I think this could be a good defense overall. Offensively, though, as I said, I don't like Adam Gase as a play caller, and although Sam Darnold did shine at times last season, they need to figure out how to use Le'Veon Bell efficiently and effectively, but overall, I think they're going to be number 30 heading into 2020. And at number 29, I think it's going to be the New York Giants. I like this team, but compared to the other lower tier teams in the NFL, I don't think they have as much talent. They did lose Nate Solder due to opting out of the season. I don't think that's going to really affect them that much. Yes, they lose a starting tackle. They did bring in Andrew Thomas in the draft. I like that. I like Daniel Jones at quarterback. I think he can move a lot in his second season in the NFL. And at the wide receiver position, I like this offense overall. I mean, Golden Tate, Sterling Shepard, Darius Slayton, solid wide receiving core. Obviously, Saquon Barkley in the backfield is going to do damage for them. But defensively, I don't know how to feel about this defense. I think they overpaid on James Bradbury. I think they panicked a little bit, and they really realized they needed a corner, which is definitely the case. But after not being able to sign Byron Jones, I think Bradbury signing him to, I think it was a $14 or $15 million deal on average per year is a little bit pricey. I mean, they do have Jabril Peppers in that secondary, and it will be interesting to see how Leonard Williams plays in his first full season with the Giants. But overall, I think the Giants will be number 29 heading into 2020. Now, though, let's move on to the Cincinnati Bengals at number 28. With the Cincinnati Bengals, I think it comes down to their offense. They added a lot defensively. They got in DJ Reader, Troy Waynes, guys like that. But on offense, it's going to be the Joe Burrow show. AJ Green's back and healthy. He's got Tyler Boyd. He's got Joe Mixon. This offense could be really solid, and they also brought in T. Higgins in the draft. But overall, at the end of the day, I don't think they're going to be able to be good in that division, especially with good teams like the Browns, the Ravens, and the Steelers. Overall, I think the Bengals slotting at number 28 makes a lot of sense. At number 27 is probably a team that may be a little bit higher up on my list than some of y'all's lists. But at the end of the day, I really like the Carolina Panthers heading into 2020. Although putting them at 27 doesn't look like I really like them moving forward, I still think this offense could be a top 15 offense in the NFL. When you've got the best running back in the NFL in Christian McCaffrey, and you've got a really solid wide receiving core headlined by DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, and Curtis Samuel, I think this offense could be good. Plus, they added Russell Okung in this offseason to really put a good left tackle in. They already have Taylor Moton at right tackle. And although this offensive line is a little bit questionable, I do like Teddy Bridgewater a lot. I think he's a good game manager. And although a game manager isn't necessarily what you want when you're trying to win football games, I think he's a solid quarterback to get the job done. I mean, he's got weapons, and when you've got weapons, he's going to be successful. Look at what he did in New Orleans last year with Alvin Kamara as well as Michael Thomas. Overall, Teddy Bridgewater, I think, is a good quarterback, and I think he's got the weapons to be effective. Yet defensively, this defense is very young and inexperienced. They spent a lot of draft capital on getting defensive players. I think they spent every single one of their picks on a defensive player. And although Derrick Brown should fix that run defense a little bit after losing some big guys at defensive tackle this offseason, I did like bringing Yetur Gross-Matos. I think he's a good pick. But overall, young and inexperienced, and it's going to be interesting to see where they're going to be able to play defensively. At number 26, I'm going to have the Miami Dolphins. I like the Miami Dolphins a lot heading into 2020. Although they lost two of their better wide receivers due to opting out, I still think Tua or Ryan Fitzpatrick, whoever's playing, has enough weapons. They've got Devontae Parker, they've got Mike Gesicki, got Preston Williams, and I think this running game is going to be much improved. But at the end of the day, I think the strength of this team is going to be their defense. They brought in a lot on defense, and their secondary looks very, very, very good. They've got Byron Jones, Xavier Howard, Noah Igbenogany, Nick Needham, and although their safety position is a little bit questionable, they do have Bobby McCain and Eric Rowe there, who are still NFL veterans and are legit NFL players who can play. At linebacker, they have Kyle Van Noy, Jerome Baker, and Raekwon McMillan, which may headline one of the most underrated linebacking corps in the NFL. Plus, up front, last season, the big problem was the lack of getting to the quarterback, and this year they brought in two established pass rushers in Emmanuel Ogbah and Shaq Lawson, who both have room to grow. Overall, I like this team a lot, and although they're my favorite team in the NFL, I still think putting them at 26 is fair. Now let's move to number 25, where it's going to be the Detroit Lions. To be honest, the Detroit Lions are one of my sleeper teams heading into 2020, and although putting them at 25 doesn't really look like a sleeper team, I think they could be really good. Offensively, though, they're going to be really, really good. I think Detroit has the potential to be a top 10 offense next season in the NFL. They've got a big quarterback back in Matthew Stafford. He only played in 8 games last year, but if he played in 16, he was on pace for 5,000 yards, 38 touchdowns, and 10 receptions. Those stats are elite kind of stats, and when you've got one of the NFL's better wide receivers in Kenny Golladay, and you've got some other good wide receivers in Marvin Jones Jr., Danny Amendola, and an up-and-coming tight end in TJ Hawkinson, I like this offense. They did lose Graham Glasgow in free agency, but they still have Frank Ragnow. They still have Taylor Decker, solid left tackle. They brought in Big V from the Philadelphia Eagles to help strengthen that line. And overall, I like this offense. Defensively, though, I think they're going to have problems. They did bring in Jeff Okudah. They did bring in Desmond Trufant. They did lose Darius Slay. I don't know how the secondary is going to work, but up front, they did bring in Danny Shelton, and they brought in Jamie Collins, too. A lot of ex-Patriots players, and I don't know how they're really going to fit in here with the Lions. When you see some Patriots players go to teams that have Patriots links, it doesn't always work out, but it will be interesting to see how the Lions defense will be able to cope moving forward. Now, though, let's move on to number 23, where it's going to be the Atlanta Falcons. With the Atlanta Falcons, I think it's going to be really interesting. Offensively, I think they're going to be solid. I mean, anytime you've got Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, you're going to be okay. And they brought in Todd Gurley to help fix that run game. Dirk Cutter really wants to use that run game to use the play-action game, and I think this offense will work well. But at the end of the day, I still have questions about this defense. Defensively, besides Grady Jarrett, Keanu Neal, and Deion Jones, I don't think they've got a lot of talent. Yes, Dante Fowler was a big move this offseason after losing Vic Beasley, and they did bring in A.J. Terrell in the draft. However, overall, I don't like this defense, and I think it will definitely be a bottom-half defense moving forward. Yet, offensively, as I said, they're good. I mean, they've got Julio. Anytime you've got Julio and Calvin Ridley, you're going to be fine. And although that O-line is a little bit questionable, Matt Ryan will still find time in the pocket and will still make throws. That's what he does. That's what he's been doing for years. Overall, Falcons slotting in at number 24, I think is reasonable. Now let's move on to number 23, where I'm going to have the Cleveland Browns. So with the Cleveland Browns, you may think that they should be higher up the list, but after what I saw, what they did last season, I just don't. I don't think they're going to be higher than 23 in my mind. Yes, they have Jarvis Landry. Yes, they have OBJ. And although that O-line is much improved with Jedrick Wills Jr. at left tackle and Jack Conklin at right tackle, they did bring in Austin Hooper at tight end, but Baker Mayfield's still a big question mark. They've got Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in the running game, and although I don't think this offense will be a problem, Baker Mayfield really is going to need to step his game up in 2020. On defense, though, I think that's going to be the issue for them. They did bring in Grant Delpit in the draft. They still have Denzel Ward, solid secondary, but I don't love their linebackers. Up front, Myles Garrett's still going to do his thing, and Olivier Vernon is one of the underrated pass rushers in the NFL. Overall, solid defense, above average offense, but I think they're going to be just the typical Browns and probably end up going 7-9. So watch out for Cleveland to be number 23 in 2020. Now, though, let's go on to number 22, who I think is going to be the LA Rams. This LA Rams team lost a lot this offseason. Obviously, they lost Brandon Cooks and Todd Gurley, but I still think this offense will be in the top half of the NFL. You've got a smart coach like Sean McVay. This offense is going to run. And with Jared Goff, Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, I think this passing game and aerial attack will be good. They also picked up Van Jefferson in the draft, and they got Josh Reynolds too. Running game-wise, I don't know how things are going to go. I mean, they've got Malcolm Brown as a veteran guy. They've got Jarrell Henderson. Obviously, they picked up Cam Akers. But I don't think this running game will be anywhere near as good as it was last year with Todd Gurley. Plus, this offensive line with Andrew Whitworth is questionable. I mean, Whitworth's a solid left tackle, but he's aging, and he had a lot of penalties last year. Rob Havenstein took a real step back last year, and I really don't like the interior of this offensive line. Defensively, too, I think their one strength is their stars. They've got two really good players in Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald. But other than that, I don't love the rest of this team. So they've got a lot of stars on defense in Ramsey and Donald, and I think this offense will still be in the top half of the league. But I think number 22 on this power rankings list is a fair place for them to be. At number 21, I have the Las Vegas Raiders. I almost said Oakland. Offensively, I think this is a top 10 offense moving forward. Darren Waller is a solid tight end. Derek Carr is disrespected as a quarterback, and he's still a really good player. They're going to play a lot of old school football with 3 tight end sets, trying to run the football down other teams' throats. Josh Jacobs is a good player to do that, and they have a lot of solid tight ends to get that accomplished too. Jason Witten's a veteran guy. Waller's a solid player, and so is Foster Moreau. Offensively, this team is really good. They also brought in Henry Ruggs, and I loved Brian Edwards in the 3rd round. Defensively, they also added some pieces. They got Corey Littleton as well as Nick Kwiatkowski in the linebacking core. Although I still think they have a hole at the cornerback position, overall, I think this team should be the number 21 team heading into 2020. Now let's move on to number 20, where this team might shock you at being a little bit too low on this list. I have the Minnesota Vikings here. The Minnesota Vikings defense has been a strong suit of them for years. And this offseason, they lost a lot. So at the end of the day, though, they still have Danielle Hunter. They still have Anthony Barr, Eric Kendricks, and Harrison Smith. And they picked up Jeff Gladden in the draft. But they lost a lot of corners, a lot of pass rushing in Everson Griffin. And overall, I think this defense just won't be as good as it was last season. Also on offense, they lost Stephon Diggs. And I don't think this team is a playoff team heading into 2020. Especially if Dalvin Cook holds out, that's going to be a real issue for them. But Dalvin Cook and Kirk Cousins will lead this offense to be a top 20 offense in the NFL. I still think losing Stephon Diggs is huge for them, but with Adam Thielen back, it shouldn't be that much of a struggle. But overall, I still think this team is going to struggle against the other good teams in this division, especially good defenses. I mean, the Bears have a good defense, and the Packers have a good defense too. So overall, watch out for this Vikings team to be the 20th best team heading into 2020. At number 19, I have the Los Angeles Chargers. So with the Chargers, this might be a little bit higher than some people might have them. It might be a little bit lower than some people might have them. But I like this team a lot. I don't care who's playing quarterback. I think they'll be good. I like Tyrod Taylor as a quarterback, and I like Justin Herbert as a quarterback too. Keenan Allen's a good wide receiver. Mike Williams is a good wide receiver, and they really invested on the O-line this offseason by bringing in Trey Turner and Brian Bulaga. On defense, that cap space is moving up, and I can see some cuts maybe by training camp. They did bring in Chris Harris Jr., and I think this defense will be one of the better defenses in the NFL. They're always a very underrated defense, and bringing Kenneth Murray only helps strengthen that defense. Overall, like the defense, like the offense, but they are playing in a very tough division. But at the end of the day, I still like this Chargers team at number 19. At number 18 is going to be the Arizona Cardinals. So obviously this offseason, the big move was bringing in DeAndre Hopkins via trade, as well as bringing in Isaiah Simmons through the draft. Offensively, Hopkins is going to open everything up, and they have Kenyon Drake back for his first full season in Arizona. That will be exciting to watch. And Kyler Murray's second season in Arizona too. This offense will be a top 15 offense next season. And defensively, though, I think they're going to have problems. Buda Baker is a solid player in that secondary. Patrick Peterson is aging, but still a good player. And Isaiah Simmons and Chandler Jones will form one of the better linebacker tandems in the NFL. Up front, I think they overpaid for Jordan Phillips, but overall, I don't love this pass rush. I think the linebackers are solid with Simmons and Jones, but their secondary could do with some extra help. Overall, I don't like this Cardinals defense, but offensively, I think they're going to put up a lot of points. Therefore, I think putting them at 18 is a good spot for them to be in. At number 17, I'm going to have the Denver Broncos. So with the Denver Broncos, I think it's all about their offense. They brought in Jerry Jeudy, brought in KJ Hamler, they brought in Lloyd Cushenberry. That really strengthens their offense all over the place. They also brought in Graham Glasgow and Courtland Sutton after a great season in 2019. Should have a good season in 2020. They also brought in Melvin Gordon to help Phillip Lindsay, and I think Drew Lock and Pat Shurmur are really going to get the job done. Defensively, though, I don't love them. Yes, they still got Von Miller, but AJ Boye is an aging guy. Yes, they got him for a late-round pick, and I think it was a steal. Secondary is a little bit questionable. They still have Justin Simmons. Overall, though, still solid defense. Don't get that wrong. They also brought in Jarrell Casey. He's a multi-time Pro Bowler, and he brings a lot of experience. They've also got Bradley Chubb back. I think this defense will be able to get to the quarterback. And Von Miller, they've got a true leader. Offensively, though, I like this offense a lot. Defensively, I still like this defense. I think there are a few question marks, but overall, I think they're pretty solid. Now, though, let's move on to the 16th team in the Tennessee Titans. For me, the Titans were all about Derrick Henry last year, and I don't think Derrick Henry can put up the same amount of yards and the same amount of touchdowns that he did a season ago. I think this offense will really regress moving forward, and that's why you don't see them higher up the list. Nonetheless, Tannehill and Henry will still lead a top 20 offense moving forward, but I think if teams just put bodies to Derrick Henry, they'll end up slowing him down. I don't like this passing game at all because although I think A.J. Brown's a solid guy to have, I don't like Corey Davis, and Adam Humphries is an average slot receiver. Offensive line-wise, they're good, but defensively, this team will be very interesting. They've obviously got last year's first-round pick, Jeffrey Simmons, but Vic Beasley, I think, is going to be an interesting guy. He's a former big sack guy, and I don't know if he's going to be able to continue that in Tennessee. Adoree Jackson, Kenny Vaccaro, Kevin Byard, and Malcolm Butler helped form one of the better secondaries in the NFL. But overall, Rashaan Evans and Jaylen Brown and Vic Beasley as the linebackers are a little bit questionable. I do like Harold Landry, and overall, I don't think this defense is bad. I don't think this defense is top 10, though. I think you've got a pretty average defense and an average offense that has upside to be really good. I think both of their offense and defensive units have a lot of upside, and that's why I put them at 16. For me, that's a borderline playoff team, and I think that's about where they're going to be. At number 15, I'm going to have the Houston Texans. So with the Houston Texans, I think things are going to be very interesting. Obviously, they've got a lot of offensive weapons, even after losing DeAndre Hopkins. They've got Brandon Cooks, they've got David Johnson, they've got Will Fuller, Kenny Stills, Randall Cobb, a lot of wide receivers. And at the end of the day, it's going to be the Deshaun Watson show. He's got Laramie Tunsil back for his second season. This offensive line will hopefully be healthy next season, hopefully be better. But overall, they weren't good in pass protection last season. At the end of the day, I don't think David Johnson's the answer at running back because I don't think he's as good as he was a few seasons ago. And defensively, I don't love the Texans. J.J. Watt seemingly gets injured every year, and although when he's able to stay on the field, he's a really good pass rusher, I just don't think he's going to be able to stay on the field. They did bring in Ross Blacklock. I like that pick. But although they do have Zach Cunningham, Bernard McKinney, and I guess Justin Reed, I don't love this defense overall. It's really an offensive-minded team, and it's going to be the Deshaun Watson show. If Deshaun Watson plays well, this team could be a top 15 team. If they don't play well, they're going to be a bottom 15 team. So at the end of the day, watch out for Deshaun Watson to really carry this team. But I think the Texans at 15 with the offensive star power and the power that they have with just Deshaun Watson, I guess J.J. Watt on defense, they are worthy of a top 15 rank in this power rankings. Now, though, let's move on to number 14, where I have the Chicago Bears. This one might surprise you. Obviously, their offense is the problem, but their defense is stacked. I mean, they've got playmakers everywhere, and with Akeem Hicks back, I think that team could be really good. Yes, they lost Eddie Goldman due to opting out, but overall, love the defense. I think that defense is great with Khalil Mack as well as Akeem Hicks back. Offensively, though, I don't care who's playing quarterback. They're going to need better quarterback play, and Matt Nagy's going to need to call the right plays in 2020. He's going to need to be a better play caller, a more efficient play caller, and overall, I like this offense if they get their quarterback right. I like Allen Robinson. I like Tariq Cohen as well as David Montgomery at the running back positions, and overall, I think this Chicago defense really carries them into the top 14. Now, though, let's move on to the number 13 team, which is the Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts did a lot this offseason, obviously bringing in Phillip Rivers, but that offensive line is really that heart and soul of that team. Quentin Nelson, Anthony Costanzo, Braden Smith, Mark Lewinsky, and Ryan Kelly are really solid players. and they make one of the better offensive lines in the league. Then pair up a great run game thanks to that O-line, and then you have Jonathan Taylor and Marlon Mack in the backfield, who are really going to help Phillip Rivers. Then you've got Michael Pittman Jr. as well as T.Y. Hilton in the passing game, and this offense could be really, really good. Defensively, DeForest Buckner is a huge move, and although the rest of that defense is a little bit questionable, I don't think they have a lot of star power left. Yes, they have Darius Leonard as well as Kenny Moore, and they have Malik Hooker, but overall, don't love the defense. I like DeForest Buckner, though, and I think DeForest Buckner will be a real game changer for that defense moving forward. He adds an elite pass rusher, a good guy who can just make offensive lines miserable, as well as opposing quarterbacks miserable, really pressure the quarterback, and I think this Colts pass rush, this Colts defense will be much improved thanks to Buckner. Now, though, let's move on to number 12, where I had the New England Patriots. Originally, I had the New England Patriots a lot higher up on my power rankings, but at the end of the day, a lot of guys ended up opting out. However, offensively, I think they might be salvaged. And you have Cam Newton, former MVP player, and he's got Julian Edelman and Mohamed Sanu to throw to. In the run game, I like James White, I like Sony Michel, and they do have Damian Harris too. Tight end-wise, I don't like the tight ends left on the roster, but offensive line will still be a strong suit for them. Yes, they lost some of their offensive line depth due to opting out, but at the end of the day, they still got Joe Thuney at left guard. Overall, I still like that defense due to their secondary, with Stephon Gilmore, the McCourties, as well as Kyle Duggar. Yes, they did lose a lot of linebackers this offseason due to opting out, as well as in free agency, and that might be an interesting position to watch. Although I don't think this defense will be nearly as good as they were last season, Bill Belichick is still a great coach, and he will find a way to make this defense work. Now, though, let's move to number 11, where I have the Philadelphia Eagles. So, with the Philadelphia Eagles, I think their strong suit is going to be the offensive side of the football. Obviously, Carson Wentz is a great quarterback. He's got a lot of weapons in Miles Sanders, but losing Brandon Brooks is a big deal. Although they do have some more wide receivers coming in, I don't love Jalen Reagor. I don't love Deshaun Jackson. And I think Alshon Jeffrey has passed at this point in his career. Although he can still probably put up 750 yards and probably 5 or 6 touchdowns, he's injured right now, and we don't know if he's going to be ready for the beginning of the season. Defensively, though, they added a lot. They have Brandon Graham, they have Fletcher Cox, and they got Darius Slay this offseason. Overall, I like the Eagles at number 11, and I think they'll be a playoff team come time in 2020. Now let's move on to the number 10 team, which is the Buffalo Bills. So especially with a lot of Patriots opting out, I think this Bills team has a rejuvenated chance to be the top team in that division. They've got a lot of talent on offense in Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, John Brown, and although that O-line is a little bit underrated, I still like Deion Dawkins at left tackle. We've got Devin Singletary in the run game, but the strength of that team is the defense. Tre'Davious White is a shutdown corner. Tremaine Edmonds is one of the up-and-coming linebackers in the NFL, and they added A.J. Epinesa in the draft to only strengthen that pass rush. I think that defense will be elite, and I think this offense, because of Stephon Diggs, will try and be a top 15 offense next season. Last season, they were one of the worst offenses in the league, but they will definitely improve come time in 2020 just because they've added more star power, more depth, and more effective players on that roster. Now let's move on to the number 9 team, which I think is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers. This Steelers team is carried by their defense. T.J. Watt is a leader. Cam Hayward, Stephon Tuitt, all really good players. And of course, Minka Fitzpatrick in the secondary, but there's a lot of more talent on that defense. The defense I'm not worried about. They'll probably be a top 3 defense come time in 2020. Offensively, though, can Big Ben get back to how he was before the injury? And can Juju Smith-Schuster play like he did in 2018? Those are the questions heading into 2020 for this Pittsburgh Steelers roster. But overall, I think their offense will be much better with Big Ben, and that defense will be just as good as it was last year. Now, though, let's go to the number 8 team in the Dallas Cowboys. For the Dallas Cowboys, it's all about Dak Prescott and that offense. That offense is absolutely loaded. I mean, they've got Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup, Ezekiel Elliott, great offensive line. And although Blake Jarwin isn't a great tight end, that offense is still great. Dak Prescott's a good quarterback, and he's really going to lead this team come time in 2020. Defensively, they did lose a lot. They lost Robert Quinn, they lost Byron Jones, and they lost some other pieces overall. They did bring in HaHa Clinton-Dix, which I think is going to improve their secondary. And although Chidobe Awuzie is a questionable cornerback 1, I like him and Trayvon Diggs. They still have got a lot of star power in DeMarcus Lawrence, as well as Leighton Vander Esch, Jalen Smith. They've got a lot of players on this defense. Overall, I think this defense won't be as bad as people are making it seem. Yes, losing Byron Jones is a big deal, but overall, this defense will still be solid. Therefore, I think the Cowboys at number 8 is a solid move. At number 7, I have the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers only got worse this offseason, and originally I wanted them to be in the top 5, but looking at their roster, especially losing Devin Funchess, that wide receiving core didn't get any better. The defense is going to be the strong suit for them, and the run game is going to be something that's really a focal point of this offense moving forward. Aaron Rodgers regressed last year, but was still excellent, still elite player. I mean, he threw a lot of touchdowns and barely threw any interceptions, and he threw for over 4,000 yards. All solid stats, and if Devontae Adams is able to stay healthy, this Packers offense will be good. Yes, defensively is going to be the focal point of that team. They were very, very good defensively last year with guys like Jair Alexander, Derek Smith, Preston Smith. A lot of talent on that defense, a lot of talent on that offense. But can Matt LaFleur make that offense really efficient in 2020, especially without getting any other wide receivers in the draft? So watch out for that. And now let's move to the number 16 in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This offseason was the offseason of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They brought in the greatest quarterback of all time in Tom Brady to help lead this team to the playoffs. Last year, due to Jameis Winston's inability to throw completions, the Bucs ended up failing to make the playoffs. At the end of the day, though, Brady is an elite quarterback. He's a really good player, and at the end of the day, he doesn't throw interceptions. That's one of the strong suits that we've seen in Brady's career. He's a high touchdown guy, low interception guy, and that's what makes him one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. Obviously, the Super Bowl is making him the greatest quarterback of all time, but at the end of the day, Brady's still a really solid quarterback, even at his older age. He's got good weapons in guys like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and he's got good tight ends in Rob Gronkowski. That O-line is much improved, and they've still got Ali Marpet, too. At the end of the day, the run game is a little bit questionable. They did bring in LaShawn McCoy, but overall, I don't love the running backs. Defensively, one of the better defenses in the NFL, and I think they're going to be on the rise in 2020. But overall, their linebackers and defensive line is really, really good. Vita Vea showed that he could play last year. Levante David still has it. JPP still has it too. And Ndamukong Suh is back and better than ever. Overall, love this defense. Love the offense. This is a top 6 team heading into 2020. At number 5, we're going to have the San Francisco 49ers. Although they did lose Deebo Samuel due to injury, he'll be back later in the season. And although they did lose DeForest Buckner, that's not the end of the world just because of the loads of talent they have on the defensive line. They did bring in Javon Kinlaw, and Robert Saleh will lock this defense down. This is a top 3 defense in the NFL. It's up there with the Steelers and the Bills. At the end of the day, though, it's going to be all eyes on the offense. George Kittle is going to be a leader on that team, and the run game without Matt Breida is going to be very interesting to see. Kevin Coleman and Raheem Mostert should be good options in the running game, and Jimmy G showed last year that he could be a good quarterback in the NFL. Yes, he was really good at times. Yes, he struggled at times, but overall, Jimmy G, good quarterback. Kyle Shanahan, great offensive mind, and this team will be very, very, very solid come time in 2020. At number 4 is going to be the Seattle Seahawks. Originally, I had the 49ers above the Seahawks, but due to the Jamal Adams trade, I think it takes the Seahawks above the 49ers. Offensively, I think Seattle has a better offense. Russell Wilson's a better quarterback than Jimmy G. And although they don't have the luxury of having a great tight end, they still have a lot of tight end depth in Seattle. Greg Olson's a good player to have. Will Dissly's a good player to have. And so is Jacob Hollister. Wide receiver-wise, I like them too. DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are both solid players. And Chris Carson in the run game is good. Their offensive line is definitely a weakness of that team. But defensively, it's all about Bobby Wagner and Jamal Adams. Although I would have liked to see them get some guys up front, they don't really have a lot of defensive line depth, or they don't really have a lot of star power on the defensive line. Bobby Wagner and Jamal Adams will be really exciting to watch. 2 really hard-hitting players and 2 real big fear factors on this Seahawks defense. At number 3, though, we're going to have the Baltimore Ravens. After having a shocking exit to the Tennessee Titans in last year's playoffs, the Ravens are back and better than ever. Defensively, they now have a real pass rusher in Calais Campbell, and that defense is going to be scary. Now that they don't have to blitz almost 50% of the time because Calais Campbell can just naturally get to the quarterback at his big body frame and elite quickness, it's going to be very interesting to see how this defense plays. Obviously, on offense, they've got Lamar Jackson, and anytime you've got the reigning NFL MVP, you're going to be set. They have a great run game, good O-line, but the defense is really going to be the strength of that team, I think. That secondary is very, very good with Earl Thomas, Marlon Humphrey, Chuck Clark, as well as Marcus Peters, and at the end of the day, I like this defense. Overall, this team's a top 3 team in the NFL, and I think they're going to be really solid in 2020. And number 2, though, is going to be the New Orleans Saints, and that's just because of their offense. High-flying offense, high-powered offense, Drew Brees, Michael Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, Alvin Kamara, great O-line. I mean, do I really need to say any more? This team is really, really good. It's loaded, and on defense, they're loaded too. Cameron Jordan, Demario Davis, as well as Marshawn Lattimore. They're stacked at every single level of their defense, and they've got a ton of talent on defense too. Their offense is going to be their strong suit, though. They're going to put up a lot of points next season. And if Drew Brees ends up going down with injury, because last year he didn't miss a few games, they still have Jameis Winston as a backup, who, although throws a ton of interceptions, he's still a good quarterback in the NFL and probably still deserves a starting job. At the end of the day, though, offense is going to be the key to the Saints team, and they're going to need to put up a lot of points on the board, especially in the playoffs if they don't want to choke again and have an early exit in 2020. Now, though, let's move on to the number 1 team in my power rankings, which is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. Is this really a surprise here? I mean, the Chiefs won the Super Bowl last year, and although they did lose Laurent Duvernay-Tardif due to the opting out process, this team is still absolutely loaded. Obviously, the offense is the focal point of this team, and anytime you've got probably the best player in the NFL, you're going to be a real threat. Patrick Mahomes is terrific. In my eyes, he's the best player in the NFL, and although we did see a little bit of regression in 2020 from his 2019 MVP season, I mean, he's still really, really good. At the end of the day, Mahomes is a solid quarterback, great quarterback, and he's got great weapons all over the field. Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill are awesome players, and that run game with Clyde Edwards-Helaire is going to be very, very interesting to see. Plus, he's got Mitchell Schwartz at right tackle, who's probably the best right tackle in the NFL after not giving up a sack in 2020. Defensively, Chris Jones, Tyrann Mathieu lead one of the hungriest and underrated defenses in the NFL. And overall, I think this defense will be solid. I don't think it'll be a top 5, maybe not even top 10 defense, but it will keep teams in check while the Chiefs rack up all the points. This Chiefs team is built on skill, speed, and offense. So overall, I think the Chiefs will be the #1 team heading into 2020. So with the Chiefs at #1, that concludes my Power Rankings video. Did you see your team too high? Did you see them too low? Did you see them where you like them to be? Comment down below. Comment down what you think about this video. Also comment about the new setup and new design of this video. I tried something new. Did you guys like that? At the end of the day, comment down below your Power Rankings. I'd love to see your thoughts and your ideas. And also, if you have any suggestions for any new videos and new video ideas, please comment down below those too. Plus, if you're new around here, please like and subscribe. It really helps my channel grow. And until next time, see ya.